Welcome to the Osmo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal Emac coming to you with one Adam Ship My Money Share as we head into a short 4-day week. For those of us in the working world, we're going to start it off on a Tuesday. Adam, how was your holiday weekend? And was it different from any other weekend?
Yeah, I got to hang out with a couple of my friends that I don't really see that often anymore because they're married and with kids and have lives. So it was cool to hang out with them, catch up. Hadn't seen them in a while, so yeah, a little bit different. How was your weekend?
It was good. We just hung around the house, did some sports, did some DFS, talked to like every family member. They all got like their own hour-long conversation. So at least now I'm good for the next few weeks without having more than just a quick hello. So that was good. And then I did a bunch of cooking. So I made some. Today I do a chicken salad, which is really good. But we didn't have mayonnaise, and I always put a little bit of mayonnaise in there to kind of keep it moist, but we had some sour cream, so I did sour cream in it. It's actually not too bad. And then I made an artichoke rice salad, which, yeah, sounds very veggie heavy, but it's actually really good. I used to hate it when I was a kid, but I took my mom's old recipe for it. She puts curry in it. I don't like curry, but I've tweaked it, and it's really good as well. My wife likes it a lot, and they're both chilled salads, so it's good because it was hot this weekend.
That it was.
So we've been sitting outside eating dinner in the evening on our screened-in porch. So this was a good food to do that with. So in any event, let's get on into the slate here. There are two 6 o'clock games. There could be some potential weather there in the Yankees, who are hosting San Diego. So keep an eye on that. The other one is going to be Pittsburgh, and they're going to have Jordan Lyles going against, undecided yet, for the Cincinnati Reds. Again, these two teams were coming off a doubleheader on Monday, so we'll have to see what happens there. But we're going to skip on those for our analysis. We're going to go pitcher game by game, but we're going to hit the pitchers. We've gotten a lot of good feedback on that, so we're going to continue doing that, just giving you thoughts on the guys we like, and then potentially the guys we could take advantage of. Our first matchup here, Adam, it's the irresistible force versus the immovable object. You've got Matt Boyd going against Baltimore, and you've got Dylan Bundy, returning the favorite, going against Detroit. Both teams are checking in with a 4.2 implied run total here. Boyd is coming in at 10,300 on DK, which is pretty spendy. Bundy equally up there at 8,500 on Yahoo. They're still incredibly expensive, 49 and 44. I definitely want to go with Boyd there. Let's start off with Boyd here going against Bundy. We know that obviously it'd be a lefty-lefty matchup, but Chris Davies is on the disabled list for the Orioles. He went on a couple days ago. So if you've noticed, he hasn't been in the lineup. That's why. But that means Keon Broxton has become a fixture in the lineup here as well. What do you want to do with Matt Boyd against your Baltimore Orioles?
I like Boyd a lot here. You look at the top tier of pitchers, and there are some good ones on the slate, but no like true aces outside of Strasburg, and he's got a tough matchup at Atlanta at a more expensive price point than Boyd. Baltimore strikes out more against left-handed pitching than they do against right-handed pitching. Adding Keon Broxton, gives them a right-handed bat, but he strikes out about 36% of the time against left-handed pitching in his career. So, still another really high strikeout guy in there. And Boyd has just been really good this year overall. He struck out 29.3% of right-handed hitters. He's held them to a 296 expected WOBA, 31.7% strikeout percentage against lefties, though I only expect there to be probably one in this lineup. I think it's a really good spot for Boyd. I like him a lot at the top tier.
All right, and then how are you feeling about Dylan Bundy? Sort of, and I hesitantly say that, sort of riding the ship a little bit from his absolute debacles earlier at this point in the year. It feels a little spendy across all the sites. That's he's getting a little bit of a boost in his price tag going against the Tigers that have not been very formidable, but he's had three pretty good games in his last 4, that being Bundy. Any thoughts on him? Any changes you've seen in his pitch mix? He's been allowing in his last 4 games only 3 home runs, so that's very few for him.
Yeah, I think that it's a favorable matchup for him for a couple of reasons. For one, we know that he really struggles with home runs, and there's not a ton of power in the Tigers lineup. You have Kristen Stewart, you have Nick Castellanos, to some extent, Nico Goodrum, but not that many legitimate power threats in this lineup. And then on top of that, it's a very right-handed heavy lineup. The projected lineup has 7 right-handed hitters in it. And against righties this year, Bundy has struck out 29.1%. So he does give you that strikeout upside. The problem is, just as you alluded to, that his price tag is up across the industry for this matchup. So I prefer obviously rostering Bundy when he's cheaper, and I can get away with him giving up a couple of home runs because I still can get around 100 pitches and he can rack up some strikeouts. But at 8,500 on DraftKings, you need him to actually be. You really need a good game from him, which he can give you in this spot. It's just a little bit more expensive than I would like.
All right, let's continue along here. Our next one, we have the St. Louis Cardinals in Philadelphia. There's a chance for some storms in the area for this one, so keep an eye on the weather. Adam Wainwright, I almost said Adam Rainwhite, because, that would be a Spoonerism related to the weather. Going against Nick Pivetta here, 28 and 27 respectively on Yahoo. Wainwright is 6,700 on DK. He is Pivetta is 8,900. I wanted to call out Wainwright as one of the guys I'm interested in targeting against in this matchup. Adam, let's see, where are my notes? So he's now 37 years old. This is his 13th or 14th season. 14th season. He's allowing this year against lefties a 2.1 home run per 9, a 43% hard hit rate. He's got a 6.8 ERA, 5.1 xFIP, and he's striking only 13% of his last 105 lefties out. Yes, the Phillies are incredibly righty heavy, but Harper just stands out as an amazing play. He's 4,300 on DK, so that's someone I want to go to, and I don't mind rolling in with Rhys Hoskins or JT Realmuto here against Wainwright. I'm assuming you're anti-Wainwright. How are you on Pivetta?
Pivetta, I think it's a really scary matchup. He's a pitcher that I believe in his stuff. He's struck out about 33% of hitters at AAA this season. But one thing that I think is concerning is that while he is striking, or he has struck out a lot of guys at AAA, he has a 13% walk percentage, and often, minor league hitters don't have the same plate discipline that major league hitters do. So if you're walking those guys, there's, I think, a pretty good chance that he could run into some trouble against the Cardinals here with, getting behind in counts and putting extra guys on base. And then in addition to that, well, it is a right-handed heavy lineup, which plays to Pivetta's strengths. He relies on his, hard fastball. He averages about 95 miles an hour on his fastball. He's thrown it about 46% of the time to right-handed hitters since the start of last season. The Cardinals have a very, very good fastball hitting lineup. So I think that's scary for Pivetta as well. We know that this park plays up strikeouts, but also plays up home runs. If he's getting, close to no ownership in tournaments, I think that it would be worth the risk. But if people are going to go there, I just think it's a really scary spot. And I think I'd actually have a little bit more interest in some reasonably priced Cardinals bats like Carpenter and Goldschmidt and DeYoung.
Yeah, those guys are coming in way too low over there on DK on Yahoo. Presenting sponsor of many of our shows here, including the Early Bird podcast. You can get Jose Martinez at 15, Paul Goldschmidt at 14, Carpenter at 19, DeJong 19. So those are all reasonably priced guys over there. For perspective, let's see where I've done this so many times. I keep going to the Nationals to look for Harper. Harper is just 18 in this same game as well. So Harper been struggling somewhat at the plate, striking out a lot like he generally does, but that power in this matchup is just phenomenal. Continuing along here, our next game, we have the Toronto Blue Jays going into Tampa. They are playing the Rays. The Rays will be going with opener Ryan Stanek, and it looks like Clayton Richard will be making his second appearance for the season. Any thoughts here on Richard? He is 6,200. This is a Coors Field slate with some less than stellar pitchers going. That's already a 12 implied run total for that game. Adam, thoughts on Richard?
I have basically no interest in him. He only threw 54 pitches in his first start back from the injured list. Even if you see him tick up a little bit and get to like 70, 75 pitches, that's not giving you a whole lot of upside. It's a Tampa team that does have a lot of strikeouts against lefties, but he's still going to have to deal with guys like Garcia, Tommy Pham, probably at the top of this order. You have Travis d'Arnaud with some power behind the plate. you can I mean, you can always make an argument for rostering these 6K pitchers because, I talked about it on the show this morning with Jake, or yesterday morning with Jake. You don't need a lot for them to at least be serviceable, but the pitch count issues with Richard concern me enough that I don't think I really get there.
All right. And then at 6,400, I'm assuming Stanek is just the no-go everywhere.
Yeah. Yarborough, I think, is supposed to come in after him, but he's 8,300 on DraftKings, so I don't see getting there.
I'm looking here. I want to see, he's not showing up. I want to see what he is on Yahoo. Oh, he's 25. That's still not really worth it even though that's their site minimum. Though we did see a pitcher. Who was it? Somebody came in at 20 the other day. Adam, we didn't know they went that low. Josh and I were doing the show together. All right. That's about all I got from this one. The next one, somewhat intriguing. It is the Marlins hosting the San Francisco Giants. This game is checking in with a 7.5 implied run total. It is in Marlins Park. You've got Samardzija at 7,700, Trevor Richards at 8,200. Those guys aren't exactly cheap on DK because we've seen they've kind of smushed together the expensive guys in the low end. They're pulling it up much closer in the channel. On FanDuel, they are 66 for Samardzija, 75 for Richard, and then on Yahoo it is 40 for Samardzija and 34 for Richards. So I definitely like Richards on Yahoo. He is probably going to be my favorite player there. If you guys have not yet signed up to Yahoo, go check out any of our Spotlight Hitters articles. The second paragraph will have the link and instructions on how you can claim your initial deposit bonus up to $30. They will match in Yahoo Sports Rewards points, and those are available for use in any contest immediately. So check that out. The promo code is awesome, but you need to come in on one of our links. The other thing they're doing is they're running management fee free tournaments. So they've got one, they post them right around lock or just after lock the night before, and these things fill up real quick. They've been making the size of them just a little bit bigger, but on Tuesday it is going to be a $6,000 prize pool, 10 entry max, $3 per entry, and no management fee. And the other good thing is, even if that fills, the management fees over at Yahoo are capped at 12%, which compared to the industry standard in tournaments now of 16% is a nice bit of an extra boost there for your bankroll. Trevor Richards, yes, absolutely on Yahoo. What do you think about him in the mid-8s there on DK?
I think it's tough to get to that price point on DraftKings. It is a good park. It is a good matchup against the Giants. But Richard's strikeout numbers against lefties this year are much worse than they are against righties. He's only struck out 15.2% of hitters since last season, 21.5% of lefties. He doesn't give up a lot of power to them, but he just isn't getting strikeouts there either. And you're probably going to have 3 in the top 4, 4 in the top 6 for San Francisco. So I don't really want to pay up for Richards here. I think that you're getting a little bit better strikeout matchup for Bundy against all the righties in that Detroit lineup. And, for Samardzija, I think kind of interesting. He's a terrible pitcher, in my opinion, but he's facing the Marlins in Miami at a reasonable price tag. He's only struck out 16% of right-handed hitters this year. He's allowed a 316 expected WOBA, 183 expected ISO. None of that's good, but it's the Marlins in Miami, so not the end of the world if you get to some Samardzija.
Continuing along here, Cleveland at Boston. Definitely some weather here in Boston. Game time temperatures are going to be in the mid-50s. Pretty decent chance that there's going to be rain in the area, so keep an eye on that one. But here we have an extreme cheapie, Adam, making his major league debut, Dan Plesac, who is the nephew, pardon me, I said Dan, Zach Plesac, who is the nephew of Dan Plesac, who pitched for, God, I want to say like 16 or 17 years in the majors, played for half a dozen teams, never went on the DL, never had off-season or in-season surgery. That's pretty good for a pitcher that was a reliever who made over 1,000 appearances.
Yeah, for sure. I remember him always being he spent a lot of time in the AL East, so as a kid got to see him pitch a lot.
I want to say he was at Toronto for a
while. A lot of time at Toronto, and I think he was on the Yankees too.
That would probably make sense. And I think there was some Philly in there as well.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, that was a long. That would have been what, late '80s to early 2000s, I think, is when his career was. So
Yeah, he played from 1986 to 2003. Did not play for the Yankees though. Played for Brewers, Cubs, Pirates, Blue Jays, Diamondbacks, Blue Jays again, and then the Phillies again.
There you go. Well, it must have been the Blue Jays for going against your Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah,
that you remember.
yeah. He spent a total of, it looks like, 4 or 5 seasons with Toronto, so that's what I remember.
Okay. Interesting. Anyway, it's his nephew. His nephew is 4,500. Yes, he's going against Boston, but 4,500 gives us a lot of wiggle room here. Have you looked at any of the minor league stuff here for Zach?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up now. It doesn't look bad. I mean, he's made 3 starts at AAA this year, 6 starts at AA. At AA, he struck out 24.8%, only walked 4.4% of hitters, which is really good to see. At AAA, struck out 29% with a 1.3% walk percentage. Steamer projects him for 7.1 strikeouts per 9 with 2.8 walks per 9. So, clearly not the numbers that he was posting in the minors. But what it comes down to is that he's $4,500. He's cheaper than a lot of hitters on the slate. And, the matchup is bad and all that. But I mean, if the guy can just go out there and get through like 5 innings or something, you're fine. I mean, if you just look at what the Pirates rookie making his major league debut did last night in Mitch Keller, he went out and gave up 6 runs in the first inning. He still ended up getting you almost 6 DraftKings points, which obviously sucks. But if you were talking about paying $4,500 for that, it's not the end of the world if your bats come through. So there's just a lot more upside than downside to rostering any pitcher at 4,500, especially in the case of someone like Plesac, who has been starting games. It's not like he's an opener and he's going out there to throw 2 innings. In his most recent start, he threw 100 pitches on May 23rd. Start before that, he threw 97 pitches. He's thrown at least 90 pitches in 5 of his last 6 starts. So I mean, the guy's fully stretched out, and as long as he can get you some innings, you should be okay at that price.
All right, let me see here. On the other side, David Price. If this game is a go, are you going to give him some consideration? He kind of shortchanged us in his last start.
Yeah, left with the flu or something. One report said that it was his elbow, and another report said that he had the flu. So I don't really know what was going on there. But it's a pretty decent matchup here against Cleveland. Cleveland's offense, not really that scary. You get Price, who struck out righties at a 30% clip this season. He has struck out lefties at only 15.8%, but probably a smaller sample size there as well. Since the start of last season, a 22% strikeout rate against lefties. But the Cleveland lineup, you're going to, for the most part, get right-handed hitters here with Lindor and Santana both hitting from the right side, Jose Ramirez hitting from the right side. So I do think that it's a pretty decent spot for Price. I think that you can certainly make an argument for Lucas Giolito at a little bit higher price point against Kansas City. I prefer Matt Boyd for a little bit more, but Price certainly, in the conversation with those guys.
All right, our next matchup. This is a fun one. Washington Nationals in Atlanta taking on the Braves. It's going to be 91 degrees at first pitch here. For those of you that have listened to us here, former FanVice, current Osmo people, we talk about Steven Strasburg and the amount he perspires because it really affects him. It drips all the way down onto his hands and it makes him incredibly uncomfortable, and it does not help his control whatsoever. It's a huge distraction. Distraction number 2, the Braves have generally hit him relatively well, and that includes Nick Markakis and Freddie Freeman leading the way there. Freeman is, he's 17 of 48 with 4 home runs, 5 doubles, and the team as a whole, their active batters have a 500 slugging against Strasburg. One of those oddities, but it seems like whenever he's there and it's hot, he does not do well. I just throw that out there because we're looking at an expensive Steven Strasburg. So I don't really think I want to go there because of the matchup anyway, but looking at that temperature doesn't really help. On the other side, you have Max Fried, somewhat intriguing at 81, going against the Nationals, who are more and more healthy, still missing Ryan Zimmerman, but their team is, it sucks this year. So they have a few good individual hitters, but up and down the lineup, it falls off really quick. What do you want to do with Strasburg? Do you share the weather concerns? And then how about Max Fried? Because I know you've mentioned before that you do like him.
Yeah, I don't buy into the weather concerns with Strasburg at all.
Okay.
That's not gonna, deter me. If you look at his career numbers by month, he's basically been the same pitcher in every single month, and he's pitched his entire career in Washington, where it's hot and humid and miserable every single day from like June 1st until the end of the season.
So you're ready for summer? That's what you're saying, Adam.
Yeah, I love the weather in this area. I don't buy into the weather concerns. Like, it does look uncomfortable when you watch him pitch in heat. It's like Dylan Bundy also, just he loses like 5 pounds a game in sweat, but I don't think that it actually affects his results. I think it's one of those things where when he does get hit hard in a hot weather game, everyone just goes, "Oh, see, look, it happened again." Yep. But a lot of games he pitches are in humidity. So the bigger issue for me is the extremely expensive price tag and also the matchup with the Braves. On the other hand, Strasburg has been legitimately good this year. I've never been a huge Strasburg fan. I've always thought that he was good, but kind of overrated, at least for DFS purposes. But so far this year, he ranks 4th in called strike plus swinging strike percentage at 33.6%. That only trails Blake Snell, Chris Sale, and Max Scherzer. He has struck out a total of 30.6% of hitters that he's faced. He's only walked 6.3%. That gives him the highest strikeout percentage on the slate. The problem, again, is just when you look at the price point for him compared to other guys, his strikeout percentage is only 1 percentage point higher than Boyd. His walk percentage is also 1 percentage point higher. So you have a guy with the same K minus BB percentage for $1,500 more in a worse matchup against Atlanta. It makes it kind of tough to justify paying all the way up there on DraftKings. If you look at FanDuel pricing, you get Boyd at 10.2 and you get Strasburg at 10.6. So there, I think you could make more of an argument for Strasburg, especially if people, do shy away because of the matchup. And then on Yahoo, $49 for Boyd and $53 for Strasburg. Again, you can kind of play more of the ownership game there since you can get similar roster constructions with either pitcher.
And do remember, we do have ownership projections for all 3 sites. The 3 big ones, Yahoo, FanDuel, and DraftKings. That is part of the premium package. If you have not yet signed up, I'm going to give you 2 ways you can get in. One, use the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word. Get 50% off any 1-month package of your choosing. We also have weekly packages. You don't get the discount on that, but if you want to try it out for a week, you get access to everything, including Slack. The second way is go to Twitter at EMACDFS. My pinned tweet, we are doing another 1 month of full premium access giveaway to the winner of the DK contest going on Thursday, the single game NBA contest. So it's $1. I think it's top 20 or paid out, must fill to run. We made it a little bit bigger this time because we were filling these up, and 2, we had a long time to go before we got there. But check out my pinned tweet. What you're going to want to do there is click on the link to join the DraftKings League, the Osmo League, and then that way you will get the invitation alert notification when we post contests like this. And we're only posting contests in there that we are putting bonus prizes in. And this is one of them. So definitely check that out. Adam, continuing. Oh, what did you want to do with Fried here?
I think that it's a dangerous spot for him. This Washington team is almost fully healthy and they, have a lot of good hitters. I think that Fried has good stuff, but he still, for the season's only struck out 22.5% of hitters. He's walked 5.7%, which is really good to see for him. He's struggled with walks in the past, so it seems like he's changed things a bit to walk less guys, but it's also taken a little bit of a toll on his strikeouts. I think that at his price point, he's priced similarly to Dylan Bundy, kind of between Samardzija and Bundy. I think he's the most talented of the group, so I'm perfectly fine getting there. It's just a scary matchup.
All right. Looking at some of the Yahoo prices, they're getting a little more dynamic here with going against Strasburg. You got Josh Donaldson at 14, Markakis at 12, Ozzie Albies at 12, Dansby Swanson at 13, Acuna at 15. Just saying, one off there isn't the worst way to go in the world. I did want to call out Yan Gomes, who is $9 there, and what is he, like $3,500 on 3,200 on DraftKings. He did not play on Monday, so there's a good chance he will be behind the dish in this game. Continuing along, John Lester going against Corbin Martin. We've got where's the temperature? 85 degrees here in Houston, so they'll probably a good chance they may end up closing their roof there. But Lester at 7,500, Martin at 7,100. Those are intriguing price points. Tough matchups for both sides. Would you consider either of these guys amongst the 26 pitchers we're looking at?
Yeah, Martin's been kind of frustrating because I expected him to be a little bit better right away than he has been. He has pretty good stuff, but seems like maybe not quite ready for the majors, which isn't the end of the world. He's, I think, 22, 23. He's 23. Um, but he does still have, some talent. He can give you good starts occasionally. And Chicago's a tough matchup, but he is at a really favorable price point. You look at pitchers around him, and you're talking about, John Lester against Houston, Nick Tropiano coming back from the injured list, Adam Wainwright, Zach Davies. It's really Martin and Marco Gonzalez, the two in that price range that I think have any appeal whatsoever. So in tournaments, I think that going to Martin is a pretty good way to go.
And then Lester, tough matchup for him. Lefty going against Houston. They are, of course, missing George Springer and Jose Altuve, but they're still pretty darn good in this one. Robinson Chirinos, 3,500 on DK, another guy who's interesting as a discounted catcher. Should see a little bit of a lineup boost there with those other guys out, and he does have light tower power, so I don't hate that, particularly on the 8 o'clock slate. Moving on to our next game in the 8 o'clock hour, we have Zach Davies at 6,500 going against Martin Perez and the Twins. Laffy, I'm going to channel my inner Laffy. Fella. I told you at the beginning of the year that Martin Perez has changed things around, fella. I'm going to take a victory lap here. 9,100 for Martin Perez. Did you ever envision a world in which Martin Perez was nearing $10,000?
No, pretty crazy. And
that's a pretty good Laffy. Well, it doesn't sound anything like him, but that's what he would say.
Yeah, I'm not going to Perez against Milwaukee. Just a really tough matchup. He's been good this year. He's improved, but I also don't think he's quite this good. So I'm not getting the Perez.
Yeah, a little bit spendy there. Davies on the other side has had a good season thus far, but the Twins are a veritable juggernaut at this point. They are dramatically leading the league in runs scored. They had a couple monster games that really pushed them ahead of the scrum, and I think they're leading the league by 15 or 20 runs at this point. So that's pretty impressive. But Davies is at 6,500. We should see it'll be about 60, 62 here at first pitch in Minnesota. A slight breeze coming in from left field. Would you consider Davies as one of our discounted pitching options?
No, I don't think Davies is any good. I think he's basically an average pitcher at best, and he's facing a Minnesota team that's absolutely just ridiculously good offensively. Doesn't strike out a lot, has tons of power. I would much rather just get to someone like Gonzalez, or even take a chance on Corbin Martin, just because I think he has better strikeout stuff than Davies does, and they're both in difficult matchups.
All right, let's continue on there. Coors Field, here we are. It's the 8:40 game. It's going to be around 50 at first pitch. There's potential scattered showers in the forecast. Keep an eye on that. You have wind coming in from left field in the 8 to 12 mile an hour range. You have Merrill Kelly on the mound against Antonio Senzatella. Merrill Kelly, of course, is a 30-year-old rookie that had a long and winding path to get to the major league. So he was drafted not once, not twice, but 3 times. I've seen a lot of people drafted twice at him. You can get drafted out of high school, and if you choose not to sign a contract, you have to go into college for, or JUCO or whatever you do, for 2 years, and then you're eligible for the draft again. Well, he sat out after he got picked that time, went to a different college, and moved up from like the 40th round to the 20th round to finally being selected in the 8th round by the Tampa Bay. Spent 5 years moving up through their system, never got out of Durham, and then went over to, I think it was Korea, for 5 years. And here he is. I don't want to take him. in Coors. He has been hit pretty hard here. Let's see, he's got 10 starts spanning 53 innings. He has a 4.8 ERA, 1.55 whip, just 40 strikeouts, nearly a double-digit walk rate. And it's the righties that have really gotten to him. 370 WOBA, 225 ISO, and you've got Nolan Arenado and Trevor Story. I don't really want to mess with them. David Dahl, Romel Tapia, Daniel Murphy should be in play. They'll be probably the top 5 hitters, maybe top 6 hitters in the lineup, because they finally put Charlie Blackmon on the deal with the calf injury. I think it's going to be a Coors night, Adam. Coors night. Do you want to target Kelly with anybody in particular? And how do you feel about Senzatella?
Yeah, I'm just interested in bats here. Kelly, not really overpowering stuff. Someone that's going to let you put the ball in play, and that obviously is an issue in Coors and Senzatella. Kind of the same thing. Lets you put the ball in play. I think that David Dahl is still really favorably priced, $16 on Yahoo. He's a nice combination of power and speed, so I like getting to him in any format. But also, of course, getting to Arenado and Story and Tapia and basically the entire Rockies team is good. They have almost a 7 implied run total right now. And then on the other side, not as favorable a spot for Arizona, but they probably come in at lower ownership too because they are more expensive for the most part. If you're looking at DraftKings pricing, the top 4 hitters in their projected lineup are all at least $5,500. That's near impossible to get to with any sort of pitching that you're going to want. So that'll keep their ownership down by itself. And you get a pitcher in Senzatella that pitches the contact. You get a Rockies bullpen that isn't very good. So, the top end of pitching here has some quality options, but I don't think that there's anything that feels like I can't pass it up. So I think that, in some tournament lineups, you do get a lot of upside by just punting, pitcher twice and jamming in as many bats here as you can.
I don't understand. I mean, I get the Coors Field bump that's kind of on steroids for these Arizona hitters on DraftKings, but Jared Dyson at 57. I was looking at that. I was like, oh my God, what is he? Is he like second in the league in stolen bases? No, he has 12. He's got like 9 extra base hits this year, but he's 5,700. I mean, he's as much as Eduardo Escobar. He's more than Adam Jones. I don't understand that one.
Yeah, and I do want to point out Christian Walker. He's only 4,300 on DraftKings, so you get a nice price discount on him relative to the rest of that team. And Senzatella tends to struggle with right-handed power, so I think that Walker's in a pretty good spot here.
Didn't they? Kevin Crone got called up from I forget whatever the Arizona minor league team is, but he's up there and could be potentially splitting time with Kevin or with Walker. I'm assuming Kevin Crone is CJ Crone's brother. It would
I have no idea
to make sense, but that really does not matter. But just pointing that one out. So he's about the same price as Walker. So just keep an eye on that when that lineup comes out. Don't be overly surprised. But Walker's been slumping like a son of a gun. So there's a chance that if Crone has a decent showing, they may give Walker a little time to clear his head back in the minors, kind of a deal for a week or 10 days. So just keep an eye on that situation. Moving
guys is in the lineup.
Pardon?
Whichever of those guys is in the lineup, they both have power.
Yes,
and can get the Senzatella.
Yes, absolutely. All right, 3 more games to go. This is the 10 o'clock slate. I can't remember who the opener is going to be, but Nick Tropiano should be coming in for the bulk of the innings. I don't think he's pitched yet this year, Adam. He is coming off the DL. He's going against Frankie Montas. Montas, 11,300. How the hell is Montas priced that much against the Angels, who just don't strike out?
Yeah, I mean, Montas has been good this year. He has added a splitter that is just nasty and has gotten a lot of swings and misses, in particular against left-handed hitters where he throws it more often. But the price tag here against an Angels team that just does not strike out and is, has a pretty balanced lineup in terms of righty-lefty. I'm clearly not getting to Montas here. The price tag is just too much for me. As far as Tropiano goes, not expecting him to go too deep into this game. He has a history of arm injuries. He's made 5 starts at AAA this year, 22 and a third innings pitched total. Pulling up now to see exactly what his pitch counts were, but I wouldn't expect him to go very deep into this game. He's not super cheap. It's not a high strikeout matchup against Oakland. They, against right-handed pitching this year, have only struck out about 20% of the time. Pitch count wise, though, he actually looks better than I expected. Not great, but in his last 3 starts, he's thrown 80, 86, and 74 pitches. So, I think expecting 80 to 85 pitches is perfectly reasonable, but it still just isn't the spot that I plan to go to.
All right. So I'm looking at Montas's numbers. Holy cow. So the little blurb here on DK says, for the 5th straight start, Montas has dropped his season ERA, which is an incredible feat considering it sat at 3.1 just 5 outings ago. That is wild. 61 strikeouts in 60 innings, 2.4 ERA, 1.1 whip. He did have 6 unearned runs against Boston. If you throw those in there, it gets him back up to 3 and change for his ERA, but that's still pretty darn good.
Yeah, and his PCRA this year through his first 10 starts is 3.15, which is 14th out of qualified starters. He sits right between Jacob deGrom and Zach Greinke. So, in good company there. He's been legitimately good. I look to roster him more against left-handed hitters, but especially, just not against the Angels.
All right, and then the opener is slated to be Luis Garcia, who has not gone over 20 pitches since the 24th of April. So it would be a shock if he goes more than 1 or 1 and change. Continuing along here, we got a couple more games to touch on. Let me get back to my sheet here. Oh, this is the one I want to talk about. Adrian Sampson, 4,800, going against the Mariners. This will be the third time the Mariners have seen him. He's got 6 innings and change against him. I think, going off memory, I think he's had 4 hits, 1 earned run, like half a dozen strikeouts. I think one of them was his relief appearance, probably came in with an opener. I don't remember that for sure. But going against the Mariners, never really an easy feat. They've cooled off a little bit, but they still have one of the surprise offenses. They've got Kyle Seager is back and healthy finally. Vogelbach is hitting the cover off. So is Domingo Santana. Omar Narvaez is someone who is intriguing depending on the site that you are playing. He has been hitting third, fourth, or fifth in some of his games, depending on what they're doing with Encarnacion and Jay Bruce. So I definitely like the Mariners going against Sampson. On the other side, you have Marco Gonzalez, who has, this will be the third time he's going against Texas as well. He has been decent against them at 6,900. I'm going to have to give him some consideration here. 70 degrees at first pitch. This one's up in the Pacific Northwest. That price is pretty enticing for Gonzalez.
Yeah, I agree. I think the matchup is a bit more favorable for him than it is for Corbin Martin at a similar price point. He doesn't have the raw stuff that Martin does, only a 16.4% strikeout percentage this season, but Texas will help out a bit in that regard. And it's a park that will help, with reduced power as well. Gonzalez, just a pretty decent pitcher. You're probably hoping that you get like 7-8 innings out of him with a handful of strikeouts, as opposed to getting a game where he racks up 10 Ks or something like that. But he's cheap enough that I'm perfectly fine going there.
All right, I'm reading his strikeout numbers. This is from recent reverse chronological order. 3, 3, 3, 3, 2, 9 against Texas, 6 against Anaheim, 3, 5, 3. That's not awesome, Adam. So that does mute his upside a little bit, but that's 40 strikeouts across 57 innings. That there's not a ton there, but this price going against Texas, I'm okay with it because again, there are some good hitting environments we want to target. I'm assuming you want nothing to do with Sampson at all.
Yeah, no interest in Sampson. Lowest strikeout percentage on the slate at 14.3%. He has, out of 149 starting pitchers that have thrown at least 500 pitches this season, he ranks 144th in called strike plus swinging strike percentage at just 13.1%, which is absolutely atrocious. He gives up power to righties, which is a huge issue against Seattle with how many power right bats they have in that lineup with Haniger, Encarnacion, Santana. So I guess it's not right-handed bats, but the 3 that they have a ton of power and hit towards the top. A 419 expected WOBA to righties. He's been a bit better to lefties so far this season. He has a 298 expected WOBA to lefties. Still doesn't miss bats though. So guys like Vogelbach and Narvaez and Seager are all reasonable options. But if I'm just looking to seek guys out, it would be the right-handed power bats.
And you will see what Dan Vogelbach looks like because he is the cover boy on the article I just posted for Spotlights, Hitters, and Stacks. That is a free offering in front of the paywall there at awesemo.com. And again, that second paragraph gives you the link and instructions on how to get your initial deposit bonus match up to $30 over there on Yahoo. Does Ariel Jurado have enough pitches to qualify for that particular list, Adam?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Because he's going to be there with Sampson. He's going to be there. All right. Wrong tab. Let's move along. Ooh, final game here. We have the Mets In Los Angeles at Chavez Ravine, taking on the Dodgers. Steven Matz, $8,000 on DK. Rich Hill, 10,800. We've got the Mets checking in with a 3.3 implied run total. The Dodgers, 4.8. It's going to be 70 degrees at first pitch here. I'm really not interested in Steven Matz on the main slate. On the evening slate, it's going to be Gonzalez, Montas, Rich Hill, and Steven Matz. So you're going to probably end up with some Steven Matz there. Anybody in particular you want to target against Matz, or is that kind of just a stay away matchup for you for the Dodgers versus the Mets or versus Matz?
I'm okay with full stack Dodgers just because they're such a good offense, and Matz gets enough respect that I doubt the Dodgers carry a ton of ownership. Individually, I really like Kike. He should be leading off. I also really like Justin Turner. Matz will give up power to right-handed hitters in particular, but also the left-handed hitters in this lineup are just really good against lefties as well as righties. So that's why I think a full stack makes sense. But individually, it would be Turner and Hernandez, the two that really stand out.
Looks like Will Smith is going to be making the start for the Dodgers. Not that Will Smith. Their catching prospect, Adam.
Thank you for clarifying.
Not the rapper. Well, if this was the Angels, there may be some sort of tie-in with Disney, perhaps, since they're right there by Disneyland. But yeah, all right. Well, it sounded funnier before I actually said it. There you go. Let me see here. Rich Hill, how do you think his fingernails and blisters are going to fare in this outing?
Yeah, I'm not getting there on DraftKings, at least on the main slate. He's $500 more than Matt Boyd. But on FanDuel, once again, they do not have him priced up. He's just $8,800. So you get a nice discount there off the Boyd and Strasburg, pricing tier. So FanDuel play more than DraftKings or Yahoo for me.
All right, so Hill's pitch count, and I'm putting this out there because he is seemingly forever having blister and fingernail issues because he sort of reinvented the way he pitched a couple seasons ago. Had a nice finish there. I want to say he did that for Boston. I think it was against Baltimore, but he had some monster strikeouts that got him a contract. He's been with the Dodgers for a couple seasons now with his new pitching style, but he has been making a couple trips a year to the DL. Which has just been frustrating, but 90, 84, 96, 85, 85 in his starts this season. So just keep that in mind on DK. Your price per pitch is probably not something you're really that fired up about. Same thing on Yahoo where he's 47, but as Adam mentioned, 88 up there on FanDuel is somewhat interesting. Any other thoughts before we let our loyal listeners start their work week?
So the Kansas City and White Sox game, it's listed on DraftKings right now, but they have to finish up yesterday's game that was suspended. So I'm not sure what's going to end up happening with that game, if they're going to play the suspended game and then go straight into the second game, or like what the deal is there. So that's something to, pay attention to. Obviously, keep an eye on if it ends up being on the slate or not. But if it is on the slate, you get another really good pitching option with Lucas Giolito taking on Kansas City. He's been excellent this year, coming off of a monster performance his last time out, but he's just been good, overall. He's always had really good stuff, and now he's, seemingly putting it all together. So I think that he's a reasonable option. I would still prefer Matt Boyd if ownership is, similar, but Giolito is certainly someone you can consider. And Brad Keller gives you a $6,000 option.
That's why. So they moved that game. Let me see where they moved the start time up. It looks like.
So I see that too, but I'm assuming that has something to do with the
finishing up the suspended game and yeah. Okay, that makes sense because I was like, shit. Keller was one of the guys I really like because he literally gives up no power, like 100 ISO to righties and lefties, and I was going to be intrigued by that one, especially since it should be cooler there. So good. Thank you for calling that one out. I didn't see that when I was going through these, but and Giolito, because I wanted to ask you, holy hell, 9,900 there on DK.
Yeah, I mean, he's been really, really good. Striking out 28.5% of hitters this year. Walk rate is high, but it's it's at 9.2%, 3.61 PCRA, which puts him basically the same as Patrick Corbin and Domingo Germán, 33rd out of qualified starters. Has one of the best fastballs in terms of rise and velocity. So just really good stuff. It still feels weird paying that kind of price tag for him, but I think it's clear that the upside is there.
All right, and then before we finish here, see if you can jump over and get a Yahoo pitcher pricing list. Let's throw out a couple observations here with all these guys against each other because they're all relatively priced the same. So Strauss at 53, Boyd at 49, Hill at 47. That's kind of your higher end. I'm very interested in Giolito at 46. Incredibly interested in Montas at 45. Dylan Bundy at 44. No thanks. Martin Perez maybe at 43, but I like those other guys ahead of him better. Max Fried at 41. Very nice. And then Keller at 35. Richards is kind of the crown jewel at 34. But you can make some nice lineup constructions here with this for their pricing, kind of middle of the pack pitching.
Nick Pivetta is $27. I would probably just play him in every lineup.
Okay. What would you like? What would kind of, and this will be our last one, what would kind of be a line you have in your mind for him? Like 6-ish innings, 3 or 4 earned runs, handful of strikeouts?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's really boom or bust, and that's why it's tough for me to get to him where he's more expensive. But where he's really cheap, you're not taking on a lot of risk there. I mean, he has upside to strike out 10 guys. He has good strikeout stuff. He also has downside to give up 5 home runs to the Cardinals. But at that price tag, I don't really care. He can give up 3 or 4 home runs, and if he still strikes out 8 guys, he's fine for the price. And then obviously, it's not a given that he gives up 3 or 4 home runs. So it's just basically impossible for me to ignore him at almost minimum price.
All right, and Zach Plesac minimum price there as well, 25. So
much rather play Pivetta.
Okay, good call out. All right, with that, we are going to get on out of here. You can follow Adam at ShipMyMoney DFS over there on Twitter. I'm at EMACDFS, and it is Osmo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.